So today we're gonna do a video, and it's gonna be another version using cloth. And this time I'm gonna work with a different shape, taking a cylinder, and then we're also gonna use geometry nodes the same way to array our geometry around. And from there, we're gonna take a cylinder so that we could take advantage of a circular object this time and turn that into a piece of fabric, as I've shown in the beginning of this video. So I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this one. It's going to be a great video. We're going to do something more fall-like this time where we add a plaid texture. And then from there, we'll just do the execution of the cloth. Something new we're going to do in this video, though, is we're going to use a data transfer modifier. And the reason being is because we want to take advantage of vertex groups. And so I've done some research, experimenting, and R&D. And I found a way to use vertex groups inside of geometry nodes. Now, there is a method that I've seen floating around on YouTube, but the method that I discovered, it makes it a little bit more flexible. And I like it this way because sometimes when you create geometry node objects, you start with the one object. By the time you're done, it's a totally different object. So with this new method, we could take advantage of the existing shape an object that we have using the data transfer node, and then transferring the vertex groups over to that object. So it's a very non-destructive workflow to now have vertex groups in our cloth simulations and some other things that we can do in the future. So again, let's get into it, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Node. So we're going to use a cylinder. Got that. Going to remove that, connect this up, and then this is the start. Let's frame it. And then we're going to do some simple setup with our nodes. Okay, so first thing we need to do is create a transform node. And then next we're going to create a delete geometry node. And then a geometry to instance node. So I'm just laying everything out. And then we're going to use a duplicate elements. So we got that. And then we're going to use a set position. Got that. And then we're going to do a realize instance. Got that there. And then we're going to do a set shade smooth and a set material. So set shade smooth and then a set material. All right. And then now we're going to set up our math nodes. So a lot of stuff that I'm doing is stuff that I've done before. So that's why I'm just going quickly through it. You guys see me do this stuff before with other setups. So the thing that's going to be different is just the beginning of our setup. So we're just making sure that we can array our nodes as we want, as we've done before. All right, so we're going to set this to multiply, and then we're going to duplicate this 3 times. So duplicate it once, and then press Shift R to just repeat that last action. And then a combine XYZ, and then I'm going to press Control and space in this area just to enlarge it. And we're going to connect all these up. So XYZ, right? And then I'm going to take this section here, scoot it all the way back, and then kind of just center it here to this area. So we're going to set this to the offset, the vector to the offset of the combined XYZ. And then I'm going to connect these duplicate index to the first value of each math node. Cool. All right, so we're all set up there. Okay, so now we just need to do some cleanup work since I just laid everything out. All right, so I'm going to go here to duplicate elements. We need to set this to instance. All right, and then we're going to go back over here, and then we're going to change our see, I'm missing something, I think, because I'm not seeing my geometry. Okay. Oh, I think we got something wrong right there. Fix that. Got that all fixed up. And then let's see if we got anything else wrong. Delete geometry. Okay, so I want to take, where's my cylinder at? I'm missing it. Okay. Instance. There we go. Okay, so I needed to set my delete geometry to instance. That's where I was messing up. I knew I was missing something. Okay, so next thing we got to do is set up our cylinder. So we don't want this whole cylinder. We want to just take the top portion, right? There's a lot of different ways I can do it. I'm just starting with the cylinder, okay? And so what I need to do is delete some parts of this cylinder. And what I want to delete is the top part of the cylinder, okay? So I'm going to go here, top, okay? And then I'm going to move this up just to create some space. And then I'm going to set this back to point, okay? So point, now I just got the top, all right? And so now the reason I have the transform node in here is because I just want to shift this whole thing back up to the center point. And so now I'm going to just take the y coordinate and, oh, I'm sorry, the z coordinate, and I'm going to shift this back upward here. Okay. Oh, now it's out of whack. All right. So we're just going to shift it up, get it close to the center, just like that. All right. And then I can just set it to 39.4 just to be exact if I want, because this is 39.4. All right. So we got that set. And then now I want to take the top and I need to add some subdivisions. Okay. So I'm going to look here at the subdivisions and I'm going to increase this to 128. And then I'm going to set the fill segments to 32. And as you can see, I have added some divisions to the center or the top part of this cylinder, right? And then now what I can do is I'm going to reduce it for now because my goal is to just get the simulation right. I don't want this simulation running super slow on me as I'm setting it up. So later on, I can increase the subdivisions of this once I'm ready to finalize it. So we're going to keep it low for now. Okay. All right. Next thing. Do I got everything else that I want? Oh, triangles. So I'm going to set this to triangles also. Okay. And the reason being is because I'm looking at this center area and I'm trying to ensure that I have subdivisions there too, versus when I had it set to Ingon, right? It's just huge Ingon with so many parts. So I just want to keep dividing it all the way to the center. All right. Now it's going to look a little bit funny there, but we're not going to really see this area when we simulate. So I'm not really too worried about this area because we're not going to see it in the final, as I've shown in the final image. All right. So now that we got that all set up, okay, so we got our basic geometry node set up going. Let me check everything. We don't have a material, so let's just set a material now. We can do that. New material, material. So we'll set that up. We got that set, okay. And maybe we just call it cloth for now. All right, it's cloth 001. Boom. Okay, so we got our cloth set up. Got our material, good to go there. And then we can also add some array. Okay, so I'm going to do about 16 for this one. So I'm going to move over here. I'm going to go 16. And then I'm going to set my size to, or my height to about 0.025. 0.025. And then I'm going to set these to 0. Like so. And like so. All right, so they're pretty close to each other, right? It's a stack. Then I'm probably going to change the size of the radius too. So I'm going to go 64 for the radius and then leave the depth as is. All right, so now we got everything set up how we want. All right, so this is our geometry node setup. So we're using a cylinder and that cylinder is just being transformed, right? Up back to the center point in our 3D space, back to the 0 point. And then we're deleting parts of the cylinder that we don't need because I just want that top portion. And then from there, we're doing a geometry to instance. And then we're using a duplicate elements node. And then we're controlling the XYZ coordinates as we array the instances. Okay. And then we use that combine XYZ to control those coordinates and they plug up back into the set position so we can actually offset them. And then we got to realize instance nodes so that we can tell Blender that, hey, these are instances. Please read this as geometry. Then we got to set shade smooth, control the normals smoothing of our geometry so it doesn't look faceted. And then we got to set material node to add materials. Okay, so because you cannot just drop a material on, you have to use a set material node to add a material to your geometry nodes. All right, so that's everything. So that's our setup. Okay, next step. Let's move back over here to our layout tab. And then now I'm going to work on setting up a vertex group. So this is something new I haven't shared yet. And this is something I try to figure out for the longest time, is using vertex groups on geometry nodes. And this is the method I'm going to show you guys, which is using the data transfer node. Okay. So what we're going to do, and the reason I like this, there's another method you can use where you set up your vertex groups at the start. However, I don't like that method because once you've changed things around, it's changed, right? And I started with the plane and then I changed it into a cylinder, right? And they are very different from each other. With this method, yes, you still have to update it if you make changes. However, it's a little bit more loose than the other method, this is why I like this method. Okay, so this is the method I'm going to show you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate. So I'm going to press Shift D, right, and hit escape. And then I'm going to rename this duplicate and I'm going to call it VG for vertex group. Okay, and then now I'm going to apply this, right? So I'm basically collapsing this whole situation so that now I have access to geometry. Now I'm going to go switch to my top view, go wireframe, and then switch to vertex. And then I'm going to go in the center, and then I'm just going to select this center area. Okay, so now that I got this center area selected on VG, right, I'm going to go over here to data, and then I'm just going to do the method you use to add a vertex group. I'll hit assign. So now that I got my vertex group set up for the VG geometry. Okay, now the problem is that I want vertex groups on the one that's uncollapsed, right? That still has the geometry nodes. So I can take this data and transfer it over to this one, and let's rename it. So we're going to call this cloth sim source. Okay. We're going to call that cloth sim source. All right. So I'm going to transfer this vertex group data. As you can see, there's this little icon here. I'm going to put it here. Okay. And the reason being is because I want to keep everything flexible, non-destructive. So we're going to go to add modifier. I'm going to go generate, or I can just type it out. And then we're going to go data transfer. Okay. So it's, matter of fact, it's here. So it's an edit and then data transfer. All right. So this is how you use this. So we can take the VG, right, which is what we made. We're going to take that, and then I'm going to go down here to vertex data, turn this on, and then I'm going to turn on vertex groups, and then I'm going to hit generate data layers. Now that I've hit that, you can see this has vertex information. And then now I'm going to select the vertex group I want to use. So if I hit group right here, which is the vertex group we created in VG, now I have that data. Okay, so now this whole setup is using vertex groups, but yet it still has geometry nodes above it, right? So this is great. So now I can always go back and create a new one, right? Very easy to do to set up the vertex groups, right? And then also, if you look at here in the sub options, vertex groups mapping nearest vertex, right? So right now it's using nearest vertex, and we have some other options, right? So I can go topology. I've tried this one too. So what topology is it means like a one-to-one match, right? A one-to-one match. So if I got this geometry right here with 64 subdivisions, the source needs to have 64 subdivisions too. But if I go nearest, right, it's kind of like this gray area, right? So once I finalize this whole sim, when I up-res it, I can still use the same vertex data transfer set to nearest vertex because it's a gray area. It's like, okay, the nearest vertex is this one on this up-res version, and it'll still work. Okay, so this is the benefit of this, because now I don't have to go back so much and change things around. All right, so now that I got that set up, right, now we can do our cloth sim. And then now I can hide this VG layer, which is our vertex group. That's the control for our vertex groups. I can hide that. We don't need it, but we want to still keep that because that holds our data and it's transferring to the data transfer modifier. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to add a cloth sim. Okay. So now we're going to do another modifier, or we can just go to the physics tab. I'm going to hit cloth, right? And then this is where the vertex groups come into play. So I'm going to go here to shape, and I want to pin it. So I can pin it, right? So now we got vertex group data, right? But yet we still have geometry nodes here. Now I can take access to vertex groups. So I'm going to set it to what I'm going to pin the group and use that group there. And then now I'm going to run this sim. Or there's some other things I got to set up first. Hold on. All right. So I want to set my field weights to -1, just like that. So we got reverse gravity. Our gravity is going to go up now. And then I think these collisions will work for now. Matter of fact, let's turn them down. So we're going to set self collisions on 2. And I'm going to set it to 0.1. So let's set it to 0.1. And let's do a quick check before we run this sim. Okay. And then we could probably run it now. So let's just run it to see what happens. So I'll hit play and we'll see what happens. So as you can see, this geometry is being pinned right here, right? It's not even moving, right? It's being held. And that's because we're using those vertex groups. Cool. So as you can see, we got a simple little simulation here. Everything seems to be working out fine. Okay. And then let's play it again. See what it looks like. Play it a little bit faster after it's ran its simulation. All right. And so like in the example that I showed at the start of the video, the way I was able to accomplish that look was I just kind of ran it right about there and I stopped it and I took an image shot of, you know, halfway through the sim, right? Not the complete fold, right? All right, so let's continue with this. And now I'm liking this sim. I think I'm ready to cache. I'm going to take this sim. I'm going to up-res it. So now I can go back to my geometry nodes, right? And then I'm going to go here to my modifier panel, select that. And then we're going to add some more resolution. Okay. So we're going to turn this up to 128. And I think we had this set to 64, if I recall. 32. We had it at 32. So let's set it to 32, right? And then now we can cache it. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my layout tab. And now we got more subdivisions. And then my vertex groups will still work because I had it set to nearest vertex again. So I'm just reiterating that we want to leave it on nearest vertex instead of topology or anything else. All right. So now I'm going to run the sim. I'm going to cache it. I'm going to pause the video and come right back. All right. So coming back, I ran the cache. So as you can see, it's running very smooth. And for this one, I set it to about 70 frames. Well, I actually cached it at 120 frames. I just canceled it at around 70. And as you can see, this is all I need for the sim to create what we want to create here. So just to confirm, reiterate how to cache, when you go to your cloth, you want to go here to your cloth settings, go to the cache tab, open that up, set your range, and then hit bake. So this button will say, originally it says bake. Now it says delete bake because now it's saved. But you just click the bake button. It'll bake to the frames range that you have it set to. And then you can cancel it at any moment. So like, again, I had it originally set to 120. I needed only about 70 frames to get what I need. So as you can see, here's the sim and we have what we need, right? So let's move on to the next step. So now I want to finish the modifier stack off. So our next step is to finish our modifier stack. So we got to add a couple modifiers. So our first modifier that we need to add is a subdivision. Okay. So we just want to smooth out our geometry that we have here. So I'm adding a modifier. It's actually computing right now. I don't know why it's taking so long. Hopefully we didn't crash. Just waiting. But we want to just add it. We just want to smooth the whole thing out. So we want to add a subdivision modifier, solidify. We want to smooth it out. And then if we have time, we're also going to add some particles via using hair, just to add some extra detail. Okay, so there's our subdivision modifier. And then we're going to add a solidify to give it some thickness. It's taking a long time to add it this time around for some reason. So we're adding a solidify modifier just to give it a little bit of thickness. And we'll set it at a very low amount once it finishes. And then from there, we should be good to go. we'll see if we need the smooth by angle. So we'll test it out first, and if everything looks good, then we won't need it. Okay, so now we got this, and then we're gonna set it at like let's try 0.1 first, see what we get. Okay, so that's 0.1. We can start with that. So let's leave it at 0.1. We'll start with that, see what our rendering looks like. And then I know why I added that, because of our edges. That's why we added this smooth by angle. So we'll add a smooth by angle too. We'll wait. So we'll add this in. Oh, cool. Didn't take a long time. So we got the smooth by angle, and then we can now do some look development. So let's move into that phase, right? So now we got our whole modifier set up. It's going to play a little bit choppy, but that's okay. We're not rendering an animation. We're just doing a still image for this time around. And then we're going to set up for look development. Now, the look development phase. Now, we don't want to use this specific geometry. We want to create a collection instance, okay? So I'm going to go in here and delete these folders or these collections, empty collections. And then what we need to do to make sure this works right, because when we render, we can make a error. So we have to make sure that we set our collection 2 levels deep, right? So I'm going to create a collection. So new collection, and I'm going to put the cloth sim source in there. So I'm just going to name it cloth sim, create that. And then I'm going to drag it up into here and put it in the geo folder. Okay. Now I want to hide this collection. Okay. So I'm going to hide that, right? So 2 levels deep, we got a geo collection, and then we got the cloth collection, and then we got the source. Okay. So we want it 2 levels deep because I want to create a collection instance, and I'm going to use the cloth sim. And now that I have the instance, it's 2 levels deep. If I turn this off, when I render, I'm not going to get anything. Okay. That's because I'm hiding the instance. But now I'm just hiding this collection above. Okay. So that's why I say 2 levels deep. All right. So now that we got this set up, we can start doing our look development. So I'm going to switch to my look dev tab. And now I can manipulate this collection instance however I want, right? I'm not affecting the source. If I need to make edits, I will always go back to the source, right? That's where I can make my edits. But the instance, I can't do anything to. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn my camera on, right? And then I'm just going to shift this camera back. And then I'm going to start playing with the rotation. So as you can see, I'm already kind of getting what we want here. Might shift the camera back a little bit more. Like that. And then play with the rotation some more. And then I could probably scroll through my timeline a little bit. And let's see if we can frame it differently. So I'm going to set it to a square format, 1920 by 1920. Yeah, we'll go with that. Just open it all up. Maybe I can crop in on it a little bit like that. Just a little bit. I like that look. Okay. So now I'm seeing some facetness, but we'll come back to that. So we can work on our look. Okay. And I can scroll through. So I can just use my arrows to kind of just move through. So maybe I like something more like that because I'm getting more crinkles here, right? And I can shift the camera up again. And then maybe move this over a little bit freely. And then now I can start my render, right? So we got it framed up. I'm going to start rendering. Got a black screen. Now let's mess with some lights. So I can start an area light, move it to the right, rotate it up 90 degrees, and then make it big. Okay. So we got the light set up. I'm going to set my background up now too. And I'm going to go to my render settings. No, I'm going to go to my world settings. And then I'm going to set this to white. So turn the value to 1. And then we're going to go down to ray visibility. I'm going to turn off diffuse so that the lighting in the background is not affecting our object. Turn off glossiness, transmission, volume scatter. So all I want to see is color, right? That's all I want to see for this one. Okay, so now we're going to just light our object. So let's play with some lighting. And then we need to turn up our brightness. Let's go 64. Got that. And now I just want to play with the shadowing. So now I'm seeing some facetness still, right? So I'm going to go back here to my source and play with the angle. So maybe I'll turn it up to 60. All right. So let's see what 0 looks like to get a gamut of what our results are. And then 90. All right. So now that's all smoothed out, right? I think we still got a little bit more. Let's go 120. Now my edges are messing up. So we'll go 100. And we'll set it to 90. 80. Let's go 90. No, 89. Oh, too much. 89. Okay, we'll start with that. All right. And then I'm going to increase the brightness of my lights, 128. Cool. And then I'm going to create a bounce card. Plane. Oops, did I not create it? I don't think I did. No. All right, so plane. Shift that downward, scale it up, and we just want to get a little bit of bounce light below. Okay, so I just kind of want it out of frame. Got some bounce light going. Maybe I can rotate it just a tad bit so I can get some more on that left side, like so. Go to my front view, shift it out of the frame, get some more. Maybe I need to scale it up a little bit more too. Go to my front view again. Cool. So I just want some information here. I don't want this in complete darkness. That's what I'm doing. All right. I can probably play with this more, but I like what I got so far. So we'll start with that. And I'm probably going to increase the, I was thinking about increasing the thickness of the fabric, but I'm going to leave it as is for now. I could probably add some more subdivisions to the fabric, but I'm going to play with the shader first. So let's play with the shader now. So let's shrink this down a tad bit, and then we're gonna go to our shader area. Now we're gonna play with that, and then I'm gonna select the source because that's what holds the material, not the instance. So zoom in, and as you guys have seen me do before, add a ramp, connect this up, and then I'm gonna add a texture. So image texture. Then I'm going to use a fabric texture. I'm going to find that. I'm going to turn on my UV coordinates by pressing Control T, as long as you have Node Wrangler on. And then I'm going to hit open. You guys probably cannot see this part, but all I am doing is I am finding a texture to use. I'm finding a fabric texture that I just have in my library. So I'll bring that up. And then let's see, where's it at? General. And then go to fabric. And then show my thumbnails. So I have a plaid texture, and I got this texture from textures.com. So if you go to textures.com, you can find a plaid texture there easily. All right. So now that I got that set up, I'm going to just plug it right in here too, just so that I can see what's happening. And then, all right, so let's get this all set up for the texture. All right, so for the texture, I'm going to set it to generate it. So I'm just going to connect this up and then set it to generate it. And as you can see, there's our plaid texture, right? And then I'll just fix this up again. And then now, being that this is just a black and white texture, I can play with the colors, right? So let's say I want to make this green, right? So I can say, well, let's make this green, right? Like a darker green. So let's take the value down, bring that down. Now we got like a dark green plaid, right? And then let's say I want to make it red too, or I can mix them. Let's say I want to make it something like that, right? So I got a lot of control because this is a black and white, but being that, you know, we're in the fall season, and then in the source image that I showed, we're using the casual, not the casual, but the cliche red plaid, you know, that you wear in the fall time. Let's do that. So I'm going to make this black. Set the saturation all the way down. Maybe just go 0.001 so I'm not in complete black. And then I'm going to change this to red. So take the blue out, and now we got our red, right? So got that plugged up, and then I'm gonna make it like a deeper red. So I'm gonna take some of the saturation out. To me, it's a little too big. Let me add some of that back, as a matter of fact. So let's add some back in, take the value, darken it a little bit, something like that. Looks good. Add some back in. Okay, so now we need to play with, we got to make this look like fabric, right? I'm not using any references, which is not good, but I'm just kind of going off the fly on this. Okay, so I want to also give it a fabric texture to it, because right now it's very glossy, so it looks cheap. I'm gonna make this red deeper too. So let's make this a deeper red, and then we'll pull it down this way in that direction. Yeah, right in that area. Cool, I like this. So we probably need to brighten our light source too. Oh, rolled my wheel on accident. All right, so I'm gonna brighten the light source too. So we'll go down here, brighten this up. Let's go 256. So we got a brighter light source. And then now I need to add another texture. So I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D. Click that to make it independent. And then I'm going to add actual texture to it. So I'm looking for a fabric texture. So I think this is like a polyester. So we'll go, I'm not going to use polyester. I'm going to use something more like cotton. Just find something that works. Let's just give something, let's just give it a texture. I'm going to take this jean texture and use it. All right, so we're going to add a bump. And then I'm also going to give this one its own texture coordinates by pressing Control T. I'm going to plug this into the height and then plug the normal into the normal. All right. And then got that plugged up, and I'm going to switch this over to generate it. And now you can see that we got some texture information. So just to confirm, I'm going to remove this, and we're going to look at it in black and white. Maybe let's go a little bit darker so we can see the highlights of the texture, so we can just read the information that's happening. Okay, so as you can see, we have some texture happening, right? So let's make some edits to this. Maybe it's too strong. I'm going to take the distance down to 0.1 and then take this down to 0.5. All right, and then also looking at this, I think by default this is working out already, but just for kicks, I'm gonna turn it up. Yeah, just for this image sake, I'm gonna leave it at 1 by 1 by 1. It was already working, but usually, you know, when I add these textures on, I'll look at the scale of it and I'll change the scale. But being that this is something that we're doing pretty abstract, I'm going to leave it as is. Okay, so once we got that set, I'm gonna go back here, add this back in, and then I'm going to turn the roughness up to like 0.8. Maybe we'll just go full. Okay, 0.8 was good actually. So I can go 0.8, maybe add some sheen, maybe it won't. Try it out. So I could add some sheen to it too. Maybe just a low amount, 1.125. Turn the roughness up higher. Maybe increase the bump again. Let's see, 0.75. Okay. Scale this up too. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit so we can actually see the detail. Okay, so now we're getting something, right? All right, so if I go 0, what do we look like? Okay. So yeah, this is looking nice. I'm liking this, right? Zoom back out. So as you can see, I'm going to zoom in one more time. We can see that we got all this detail here from the jean texture that we're using, right? I'm going to zoom back out like that. And then I'm going to play with some other things. So we can add another level of detail. Again, this is all abstract. I'm kind of just going off the fly with all this stuff, just messing around. But now I can say, I want to add some fur to it, right? So now I can add another level of detail. So I can go here and then, well, actually particle, right? I'm on the source. I'm not playing with the instance. I got the source selected so that we can get all of our information back. And then I'm going to go over here to particle. Hopefully I don't crash this. And then I can say add particle, right? And I'm going to turn this off for now. So now we got a particle system. I'm going to change it over to hair. So now we got hair. And then now we're going to play with the length, maybe 12, actually probably shorter than that. And then set this to 1024, right? And then source, faces, maybe I'll go vertices instead. Use modifier stack so it reads all the information that's happening. So now you can see hairs popping up on here. We're probably going to make them even shorter than that, but we'll start with what we have. And then I'm going to go down here to children, interpolate it, set it to that. So now we got hair across this whole geometry on multiple instances of it. Okay. And now I'm going to leave the dynamics off for this one. So if we go render again, let's take a look at what we have. So now you can see we got hair, right? And they're too big right now. Okay. And I can increase the amount of hair too still. But first we need to set the scale of our hair because right now it is way too big. So let's play with the size of our hair too. So we're going to go hair shape. Let's see if I remember this right. I haven't done it in a while. I'm going to set the diameter root to 1. What does that change? Okay. So now we're getting thinner pieces. I like that. And then the tip is set to 0 right now. So maybe 0.5. All right. So they're very, very, very thin. Okay. And I want that, right? Because this is just a level of detail. And sometimes it's better to feel something than to see it. So you're going to feel it more than you see it, right? You're like, is it there or isn't not there? Okay. So that's the goal of what I'm doing here with this hair. So I'm going to turn up the amount of hair that's on this object. So we're going to go 4096. Okay. So now we should have a lot more pieces of hair or threads, if we want to call it that, right? So if you zoom in, right now we're seeing threads popping out of the geometry. Maybe I need to add even more than this. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm missing something. So if you guys remember in my previous videos when I was doing like these hair simulations, again, so just to repeat this, when we turn on children, so when I had it to set to none, we had exactly 4,096 strands of hair, right? And then now when I turned on children, in the viewport, we're seeing for every strand of hair, there are 10 in the viewport. But when we render, for every strand of hair, we see 100. Okay. So we're not seeing the exact result. So if I set this to 100, now I'm getting a 1-to-1 result based off the rendering and what's displayed in my viewport. So this is what we'll see in the actual viewport. So you got to remember that, because sometimes you'll have this thing where you'll be rendering, you're getting something totally different. Okay. Okay. So now I'm seeing all my hair and I'm trying to just determine, I'm thinking that I should make them even shorter. So I'm going to go to mission. Let's go 0.5. I'm actually add more hair too, because this hair is being duplicated across all of this geometry that we have here. So we got to make sure we have enough for everything. So 8192, I'm going to increase it to. I might cut it off there so I don't crash my computer. But you guys can experiment and see how far you can take this too. And then I can also go over here to, I'm going to turn off rendering just so I don't crash. But I'm also going to go over here back to my children's section, and I can add kinks to it, right? So I can go here and say curls, right? So I can add curls just to bend the hair a little bit, right? So they're not so straight. And now I have to mess with these settings to decrease, you know, how much stuff is happening, the amplitude. So you can mess with those too. I don't want to keep this tutorial too long, so I might cut it off in just a little bit. But you can mess with the amplitude also to create like little kinks and curls inside your fabric too. So as you can see, now I got little bending strands of stuff happening in my fabric, right? So that's happening now too. So you can continue doing all these little things to increase the realism of your fabric, right? So again, from here, you can't see much, but when I render a final, you know, at full res, then you'll see these strands of hair. Or, you know, if I want to see it from here, I can just increase the length too. Right. So let's say I wanted to go back to like 1. right? To create this whole fur look. And as you can see, like edges right here, now we can kind of read the profile of it, right? So this is a little too long in my opinion. So I'm going to decrease that back down. Like so, right? And then we're going to frame it back up. Okay. And then another step, right, is doing some more look dev in terms of our look. So I also use Final LUT, so I can turn that on, enable compositor, right? And so it's transforming everything. And what that'll do is it'll turn off my color management and it'll turn it into basically like a raw image. And so I can use, I like this one. I use this one, or I use Kim Amland to give a really nice contrast. And then I can also go over here to my compositor, right? And then, oh, why is it not showing up? And press home. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so I can go here and then also add some glare just so that white can, this white area can leak over the fabric, right? And so now I got that set. And then let's see, medium. Oh, nothing's happening yet, actually. Let's see what's going on here. Compositor, always, it is on. Okay. Thought I would have seen it by now. Glare. All right, let's set it to bloom. Nothing. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, there it goes. There it goes. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's set it to 1. And we'll just slowly, I'm holding shift right now. So I just want a little bit of light leak. That's it. I don't need a lot. I just want a little bit of light leaking over the fabric, right? Just to kind of envelop and sit it into the background. So something like that, right? 0.95. Let's see what we get there. And then I can also play with the size too, right? If I want to tighten it up. So I'll check the size and then 0.975 maybe. It's better. And then I'm going to hit M, thanks to someone in the comments recently. Turn this off and on. Play with that back and forth. Right, maybe I can add just a tad bit more, 0.95 again. And then 7. Oh, high quality too, of course. I'm going to go back up 0.96. Yeah, 0.975 was a good number. Seeing too much down here in this dark area. Probably going to play with that bounce card again. All right, so we're good there. Done with that. 3D viewport. I think I want to increase the size of the plaid too. So I'm going to go back to my shader editor and then play with the size of this. So I think I need to decrease it. 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. Yeah, I'm liking that. 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. That's too much. 0.7. Yeah, that's probably a good start right there. Like that. Got that set up. And then now I can play with, so as you can see, oh, look at all this hair. Oops. Not that view, but over here. Got all that fur set up in this shot. And then the bounce card. Let's play with that bounce card again. So I'm going to do something more rigid in terms of angles. So set this back to 0. And then I'm going to make a duplicate. Rotate it. 90 degrees. Good. Like that. Now we're getting more light bouncing there. Just like so. Oops. And then raise this until it comes right into the frame. Pull it back out. Like that. Cool. And then I'm probably going to rotate this a little bit. Just so that it comes right there. Good. And I might be able to just shift it downward too. Since we're not seeing the back, we're seeing the front. Cool. So I'm just getting some more information back here because it was pretty dark. Right. Okay. So maybe I can play with the exposure a little bit too. Maybe go back to my final LUT and then maybe pull the exposure just a tad bit down. And in the final image, I actually did some post-production too. So I myself, I like to use Camera Raw to do some final touches on images. I kind of like process things like a photographer. So Camera Raw is a good resource too if you want to do some more finishing. So like if you want to bring up the shadows, I could do that in Camera Raw by saving out a 16-bit TIFF. I'm not going to do it in this video. Maybe I'll do it in another video. But 16-bit TIFFs work in Camera Raw, and so you can bring up some of the shadows, the midtones, pull down the highlights if things are a little bit too bright, and just kind of finish off the image to bring things to an even balance. Anyways, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is how I did that setup for this kind of cloth simulation. Pretty simple. A new thing that I shared with you all is taking advantage of data transfer, which is a modifier, and that allows you to use vertex groups on things that have geometry nodes. So again, to repeat that process, you make a copy of the geometry node setup, and then you collapse it by applying the geometry nodes here, apply. And then from there, after that copy, you set up vertex groups, and then you hide it from the scene, right? Which I got right here, VG, and I always name it VG just to, as vertex group. And then from there, you do a data transfer modifier, set it to the source, and then turn on vertex data, vertex groups, leave it on nearest vertex by default, generate layers, and then you set the vertex group. And then now you have vertex groups on an object that is using geometry nodes. And then from there, I set up my cloth sim. And then I was able to pin the cloth sim. And then I can just add the rest of my modifiers. And then if there's any other vertex groups if I want to use the vertex groups anytime later, I always have access to that. And then now I can always go back here and make edits to the original geometry node stack. So that's the benefit of using the data transfer modifier.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the video. Let me know what you guys think. Let's have a discussion down in the chat, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.